welcome to In Conversation. Our guest today is Pandita Anuradha Pal. She is a widely acclaimed tabla maestro, innovative percussionist, music producer and composer, guru educator and a President Awardee of the First Ladies Award. She is the world's first professional female tabla player and an outstanding category musician of the Ministry of Culture and ICCR and a top-graded Vidushi of Prasar Bharati. With numerous contributions in the world of music, she is equally passionate about gender equality, nationalism and contributing to society's betterment. She is the brand ambassador of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign of the Government of India, and she encourages young girls aspiring to become musicians or dancers or social workers. As part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations, she composed and produced Dancing Rain, a beautiful music video that portrays India's diversity and cultural heritage through her unique fusion of music. Here's her story. Pandita Anuradha Pal's story is that of courage, fortitude, commitment and creativity. Through sheer grit and talent, she stormed the male bastion of Indian rhythm as a 9-year-old child prodigy and first-generation musician, establishing herself as one of the world's leading and most innovative classical tabla players and composers. Recognized globally for her sparkling articulation, virtuosic repertoire, pinpoint rhythmic artistry and live wire performances that make an instant connect with world audiences, Anuradha Pal's tonal quality, technical brilliance, creative improvisations and complementing musicality is founded on rigorous study and sadhana, mentored by her parents Ila and Devendra Pal and supported wholeheartedly by her husband Shyam Sharma.
One of the things that used to be an amazing dialogue I used to have with my mother every morning was she wanting me to go to the school or college at 7 o'clock in the morning and I wanting to sleep, relax and possibly go for the next lecture if I could make it in time. Because I was always doing a concert the previous night, sleeping late, so obviously I didn't want to get up early. And so I'm very lazy and sleepy and she's saying, look at the time, go and study, don't you want to read, don't you want to get an education?
Of Tabla Jugalbandi with herself, India's first all-female band called Stri Shakti and the Sufi folk band called Sufore, Tabla star Anuradha Pal is famous for her masterful collaborations with leading Indian and international masters and interactive creations. She has several inspirational firsts to her credit. Her first performance with gurus Ustads Allah Rakha and Zakir Hussain was when she was just 15. In 1991, she was acknowledged as the first professional female tabla player in the world by Encyclopedia Britannica and Limca Book of Records, and in 2018, she led a record 217 tabla players on one stage to pay tribute to her guru, Ustad Allah Rakha, on the occasion of his birth centenary. She has composed music for award-winning albums of folk, classical, fusion, spiritual, live genres, as well as for films, documentaries and theatre. She has been propagating Indian culture and music as an educator guru. Through her organization, Sur or Saz, she propagates music for wellness workshops for children, Indian folk and classical music concerts, culture and spirituality in India and abroad. She produced Dancing Rain, a song that portrays the diversity, culture and beauty of India as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations. A recipient of 108 awards, she is the brand ambassador of Beti Bachao Beti Padhao campaign of the Government of India as an inspirational icon of women's empowerment. In 2018, she wrote the lyrics of and composed the music and anthem of Government of India's Nari Shakti campaign, Khud Ko Tu Pehchan De. Committed to the cause of gender equality, Anuradha has been promoting girls involved in music, dance and social work, thus championing women's empowerment through Stree Shakti, India's first all-girls Hindustani Carnatic band founded by her in 1996. Pandita Anuradha Pal has also demonstrated her commitment to serving the society through her several philanthropic initiatives that support the marginalized and the impoverished sections of society in a wide variety of ways. Welcome Anuradha ji to Doordarshan.
Thank you so much for having me here and welcome to all of you.
The pleasure is absolutely ours. Yours has been an incredible journey. You were a child prodigy at the age of 9, a first-generation musician who did not have a godfather. And it's remarkable how you stormed the male bastion of Indian rhythm. How challenging was that?
Well, I have always believed in my family dictum that, don't limit your challenge your limits. And if you have a problem, you somehow find a way because you decide to go the whole hog. And of course, it was very difficult. Not coming from a musician family and being a female in a male-dominated field were two negatives. And so I had to prove myself with my hard work, with just my different offerings and making myself so strong in my work that ultimately the skeptics had to accede to the talent. So I think passion and commitment is what has brought me here, and that is what I continue to feel every single day. I do not feel in any way defeated. I do not feel down. I try to keep on working towards bettering myself. And I think that is what is the big motivation in my life.
So since you started very early, when did you give your first performance and how did those who were already established in your field react to your arrival?
Of course, when I first came in, it sort of shook up everybody because here was a girl from, firstly playing in a male-dominated field like Tabla. Secondly, not coming from a musician family. So there were two negatives. So somewhere they were like questioning my pedigree. Somewhere they were questioning whether I actually deserve to be playing or getting whatever. But I think so. It initially shook up a lot of really people were very shaken up. But there were people who appreciated that a lot, who looked beyond gender, who looked beyond lineage, and then they said, okay, wow, if this talent is good, let's So they were, sure enough, concerts started to come. I started performing when I was 9. Then and in fact, on Doordarshan, I did my first recording when I was 10 and a half years old. And which is why I have a very strong respect and connection both with All India Radio and Doordarshan. And I'm very proud to say that I'm a top grade artist of the Prasar Bharati. Because I believe that the Doordarshan gave me that first time when I was 10 and a half years old. And it was memorable for me and a great morale booster as well.
It's such a privilege to have you on board the Doordarshan family. Yours has been a very academically oriented family, and you were very academically oriented yourself. You wanted to pursue academics as a child. Then what happened that made you realize that music is your inner calling? Also, I understand that you've always been very strict and disciplined with yourself. Share with us some instances that demonstrate your commitment.
Well, when I started performing and also encountering a lot of challenges and people giving me a lot of negativity and dismissing me because of my gender, I realized that I had to work harder, and that inner call was pushing me to work harder. I mean, it's rather strange that when I was doing classical vocal music, because that's how I started, I was rhythmically inclined, and that's how probably somebody noticed it and said, learn tabla, right? Because I could in the bandish, when I was singing, I could know what tal it is, how the chalan of the composition should go rhythmically. So I think academically, also I think the fact that I could apply myself, coming from an academically oriented family, made it very, very imperative that I'm good in my studies, because my parents had been first in the universities in their respective fields, and I loved what I was studying. I felt actually when I was doing physics, I would apply that to physics of sound. When I had this ability to want to apply everything of science into art. And my father, being a doyen of the pharmaceutical industry, also exposed me to a lot of scientific experiments, to a lot of, that sort of thought-provoking application of science to art. And my mother, being a well-known painter and a writer, exposed me to the enormity and magnificence of art in all its forms, be it sculpture, painting, writing, poetry, music. And I think that wide exposure made me realize that how, I somehow found a way of marrying the academics with music, and in a very strict way, because I would have a very strict and difficult, grueling schedule. Typically, say for example, come back from school by 3:30, freshen up, and 4 o'clock to 6, I would study, finish my homework. So when other kids may be going down, playing, seeing TV, whatever, I would immediately finish my homework and studies. And 6 o'clock, I would leave for my guru's place, which was an hour and a half away, and go in a bus. First take a bus, then a train, then a bus. And I was very clear that I wanted to struggle it out. That was an inner call. I came from a good family, so surely I could afford a car to take me there. But I was very, very determined that I wanted to toughen myself, because I knew the road ahead was going to be very tough. As a musician, there is a lot of uncertainty, right? And I knew that it's going to be tough. So when I came to college, coming back to the schedule, then I would go to my guru's house and learn from 7 to 10, then go to a concert, because when you learn, you listen, you learn the maximum. So I would go to a concert. If there was a concert, if there was no concert, come back, get up early morning, study or practice for an hour again, and then go to school at 8:30. And then the same schedule back again. So this continued all through from the 6th or 7th standard right up to college and beyond. And then I would also do what was called chilla, which was a very, very grueling 40-day practice regime, which is where in my summer vacations in school, because we would have 2 months of summer vacation. So the moment I would finish my exams, of course, we would go out. We were also, as a family, very fond of traveling around India, taking a car and traveling around. So experiencing India, the real India, in its roots, in its villages, in its little towns, in the little quaintness that is incredible India. And that's why I think I love my country so much, because I've seen it so up close. And so anyway, so then after that, for maybe we would tour around for about 10 days or 15 days. And the remaining 40 days that was there, when I would come back after my vacation, is when I would do this schedule of 10 hours practice every day. So it was that strict that you do 10, maybe 5 hours in the morning and 5 hours in the afternoon leading up to night. And the whole idea is really to go within, to become your own guru and to become your own critique and find out flaws and improve yourself. So that's when I would follow that very rigorous schedule. And that same discipline, I would say, and that very no-nonsensical attitude, like I don't, is what I inculcated for myself. For example, like I said, I would travel in the worst possible way just to toughen myself when I could afford it, but I still would do that only to challenge myself.
You are so humane and professional to the core. And I must say that your standing today is the result of your grit, determination, and the hard work that you've put in. How much of the steely resolve that you had to prove yourself and to challenge the gender stereotypes was shaped by the struggles that your family had underwent?
Oh, tremendously shaped, because if I put it in very briefly, my father was a refugee of the partition. And though his family was actually very well off, and actually the king, his father was a king, and that's my grandfather, was a king and actually a general, a major in the Indian army. So he was serving the India. And then he unfortunately was poisoned. And that's just when the partition happened. And my father had to come into India, leaving all that he had in Pakistan, which is there, because that was undivided India. And his mother was widowed, and she came into India carrying the Bias River, which is there in the Northwest Frontier Province, is where they had to cross into India. And there was just one boat. It was August 1947, rains. And there was one boat, the river was in speed, and she went across the river, with carrying each child on her shoulder, carrying one child, dropping the child on the opposite side, coming back for the next child. Like that, she did it 3 times, because other 2 children were big, but the 3 children were small. So she had to transport them across. And then when she came into India again, they were under street lights. I mean, they were on the street. They were stayed in refugee camps. And my dad got a lot of scholarships, because again, that steely resolve to overcome the obstacles and to overcome the problems was there. And my grandmother was there. I think it runs in the family. And my father also got that. And then he studied a lot under, literally under street lights, because they were on the street. And then he became, a very, very erudite and a huge doyen of the pharmaceutical industry. Devinder Pal was his name. And on my mother's side, my grandfather, Padma Shri M.T. Vyas, he also did a lot for society. He was a freedom fighter. And he was a great educationist. So but he was a person with very high morals and ethics. So when he founded the schools, he didn't take any money or should I say help from people so that he would feel indebted. So he said, "You give me the money, but I'll give it back to you with interest." With the simple principle that if I take a favor, I will feel indebted, and instead I want to give to society. So this was his thing, and of course he also had to struggle hugely to establish 40 schools all over India. And his story is also about struggle. So it basically runs in the family. And then my parents also, only through their hard work and through their extreme determination, established themselves in as huge professionals in their field. And that's what they inculcated in us.
So, struggle runs in your blood, like you said. And after fighting gender bias yourself, you're also helping others fight it. In 1996, you set up Stree Shakti, which is India's first all girls Hindustani Carnatic band. And you are a proud recipient of 108 awards yourself. You instituted after your maternal grandfather, Padma Shri M.T. Vyas Stree Shakti Award. Tell us about the thought behind instituting this award.
Last year, this book by my grandfather was released by the then Education Minister, Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank ji. And it was mainly because he felt that this book was a very, very great visionary document, because my grandfather in his time had envisioned education and nationalism in a sense, many decades before the new education policy. And strangely, the new education policy had a lot of, inspiration for my grandfather's work, because the creators of the education policy, or the people who added to it, studied in his school, which is what I came to know much later. But anyway, coming to why I instituted this award, I felt that when this book was released, I felt that I needed to do something in his memory. And I also wanted to help girls come up more. Now, my grandfather had envisioned female empowerment and actually implemented it long before this became a fashionable word, right? It was a first co-ed education school in Mumbai. It was, the way he envisioned education amongst, as a development amongst through the ages was absolutely phenomenal. So I wanted, in my own way, that I had been doing a lot of work through through Stree Shakti. When I first founded Stree Shakti in '96, I felt that there was still a gender bias. There was still a glass ceiling. No matter how much talent you have, unfortunately, there is a gender bias. And so I founded Stree Shakti mainly because I wanted to help other girls get a platform, so that they could get a platform to perform. And that's how even today we are continuing to perform all over the world. Now, when I founded this Stree Shakti Award in memory of my grandfather, this was to encourage other girls. So it was going one step further. Like I had been encouraging girls through my life, through my own example, and by providing a platform. And I said, okay, now let's institute an award so that there is a monetary benefit, as well as a recognition of a girl who goes beyond her brief. So the idea was to, like we often have awards which are for music or for dance or for social service, but you rarely have an award which actually combines the three, right? Because most of us do one thing or the other. And this pandemic made me realize that as a musician, my responsibility was not just towards promoting the girls through Sri Shakti, or promoting folk musicians through my band Sufore, or promoting rhythm through my rhythmic explorations. But it was also towards the community at large. So, which is why I did several initiatives at that time, and I still continue those initiatives through these difficult times to help people across all sections of society.
So you are very socially conscientious, and we saw that amid the pandemic when you reached out to marginalized musicians, children, and women with ration, with the financial help, and you've done so much more in terms of social work. You're widely acclaimed for your interactive creations and innovations like Tabla Jugalbandi with yourself, Recharge, and Sufore. What keeps motivating you to reinvent constantly?
I think, there is a huge desire to improve myself, to keep excelling. I am not a person who remains comfortable with doing the done. And I like to explore, I like to challenge myself. So when I was, for example, the Tabla Jugalbandi, it started when I was in college. And see, there's some things lead to, you don't understand what leads to what at times, what inspires you. And this is a simple example. I was told by my principal to perform for college day, right? Now I said, sir, these are people who are used to MTV culture. They're used to a little rock and roll. They're not going to enjoy classical music. So he said, no, you have the ability. Please go and play. I want you to perform for the kids, for the girl, for the college, for your college friends. And I was, so when I went and played, I thought of a story, which was very contemporary, where and actually from my own life, because I was doing concerts from the time I was a child. So my mother would have to wake me up to go to school or college early morning, because I was coming home late, sleeping late, all that. So she's trying to wake me up, and I'm sleepy and lazy, and I'm saying, let me, go for the next class, or, So the dialogue happens, and she gets angry, and finally she sends me to school. Now, this story is what I narrated to my friends over there in the college day, right? And here was a story that actually resonated with what was happening with them, because so many of them were not able to get up and come to school at 7 in the morning, or go to college at 7 in the morning, or whatever. So this story actually made them listen to my tabla solo, listen to my tabla performance, and actually appreciate it so much that they made me play more and more and more. And that was the start of what I later called Anuradha Pal in Tabla Jugalbandi with herself. Because while at that point it was just a story for to get the attention of my friends, it was more, it turned out to be an exploration in rhythm. Because there I was able to, seeing how I can articulate and express the emotions through tabla, right? And through the language of the tabla, being so evocative and beautiful. Also, I had done other experiments in rhythm, like Krishna Ke Tal, which is how the Leelas of Lord Krishna are narrated on the tabla with poetry and the voice and the tabla and other musical instruments. So this was another experiment. And when I say experiment, I believe it's work in progress. It is a performance that I regularly present also. And then the other thing was about Ardhanarishwar. That if you look at it, Shiva has two forms. There is the masculine and the feminine, and all of us have these two aspects. So how we bring the dialogue between the traditional and the contemporary is what I bring out in the Tabla Jugalbandi. So there's several, should I say, stories that I present on the tabla. There's a lot of dialoguing, and there's a lot of it's education, it's entertainment, and it's a connection. there's an interaction. So I think that is what I felt was required to broaden the audience for rhythm. Because if we look at a voice, if we look at a song, a person sings a song of a Lataji or a Muhammad Rafi, it instantly draws a connect. But when they're playing a tabla piece that maybe has been played with the same singers, there is not a recall value, because words are not something that is easy. The tabla words are different, and the language of any other, of the songs are more easily identifiable, right? So, which is why I wanted to bridge that gap. And I said, somewhere the appreciation and exploration of rhythm should be deeper. And these are my humble efforts in that direction.
Speaking of tabla jugalbandi with yourself, you are among the very few tabla players who can actually boast of playing the tabla of all the 6 gharanas. How did you train yourself to perform so masterfully?
Firstly, I'm not a master. I'm just a student, and I think I'm a very keen student. My mother used to say that I sponge from everywhere, and I tend to. I'll go and learn from a folk singer. I'll go and play with a dholak player. I don't have those hang-ups. So I think being that open and being that interested to sponge from everyone has helped me to also have the same uh, humility as a student of tabla. And which is why when I play, like I trained initially from the Banaras Gharana, then I learned from Ustad Alarka and Zakir Hussain from the Punjab Gharana. Then I decided that I need to expand my vistas of creativity, and my knowledge should grow, because I would not be happy just to rest on my laurels. I need to keep growing. I need to keep reinventing, and I need to keep introspecting. That's the only way I will grow. So with that same, the same commitment of humility and desire to learn, is when I learned other styles, be it Lucknow Gharana or Farrukhabad or Ajrada, so we have 6 gharanas of tabla. And I play them basically because I think when I play those things, when I play a composition of Farrukhabad, somehow I'm able to tune my mind to just think that. When I'm playing this composition, my mind is tuned to that. I think it comes from tuning your mind to be open, from tuning your mind to be adaptive. And it's the same adaptiveness when I do collaborations with different Indian musicians, or say when I'm playing one day with Padeshiv Kumar Sharma, the next day I'm playing with Hariprasad Chaurasya ji, or the third day I'm playing with a jazz musician. Essentially, it is about being adaptable. Essentially, it is about making yourself so trained and strong in your domain that you can get into anything without it being too much of a strain. And for that, you really have to work very hard. It doesn't come easily. There's no prescribed textbook or a methodology to it. It's a continuous learning process, and I think that that is what has been my my calling, in a sense, to keep wanting to grow, keep wanting to improve myself.
Speaking of your performances, Anuradha ji, you've done so many of them, be it solo performances or your performances at prestigious international music festivals, or the way you've collaborated with leading Indian and international masters that you also referred to. Is there any one performance that you would like to talk about of which you have the fondest memories?
Every concert gives a different reward. Let me elaborate a few very deep experiences that I've had. When I first played with my guru, Ustad Zakir Hussain, and I was just 15 years old, I learned how to be quick-witted and how to think on my feet, all this while on stage with him. Another incident was when I played in an all-night open-air concert at the Mahakaleshwar temple in Ujjain, and I started playing the tabla. I had a spiritual experience of the birds dropping leaves as if to bless me. On another occasion, I experienced Lord Vithal's dancing in front of my closed eyes while I was meditatively absorbed in accompanying Pandit Jasraj singing beautiful bhajans inside the sanctum sanctorum of the Pandharpur Vithal temple. I also recall how I had to cajole the dismissive patriarchal audience in Kota, Rajasthan, at the age of 17 when I accompanied Ustad Sultan Khan. And also when I performed my Tabla Jugalbandi for my rock-loving college friends, I learned how to create rhythmic stories with introspection and experimentation. Most recent, I would say, a very, very special memory that I have is of my performing at the Woodstock Festival in 2008 for 4 lakh fans and representing India, where it actually still gives me a lump in my throat to appreciate the joy that I got from that audience, which said, we want more, you know. Or when I performed even in WOMAD Festival for 1.5 lakh fans, just after me was the rock star Sting performing. And he came on the stage and he said, hey guys and girls, do you want to hear some more of the Sting of the Spice Girls? You know, and so he requested me to play 20 minutes more. And to be appreciated on an international level and to represent your country, I think that's a huge pride. And it is for these two achievements that the Honorable President of India awarded me the First Ladies Award in 2018, I'm sorry. So these are some of those very, very memorable moments that I will always cherish.
It's absolutely remarkable, would give goosebumps to anyone hearing you at this point in time. You've composed music for music albums, theatre, documentaries, films as well. And you composed the background score of M.F. Hussein's Gajgamani using only your tabla and voice. How was that experience?
Wonderful, because M.F. Hussain was a family friend. He was my mother's guru. And in fact, she wrote this amazing book on him, which is called The Unfinished Portrait on M.F. Hussain, because she had learned from him painting, but she had also studied his personality a lot. And that's what helped me when I composed the music. Hussain Sahab was very free, very giving. He just brought the rough cut of the film one morning, unannounced. He came home, brought the rough cut, and he said, you have to do the music. And I said, I'm honored, but I think you can get anybody, better to do this. Why me? I mean, meri auqat kya hai ye sab aapka kaam karne ki. So he said, no, you are a tabla phenomenon. You're somebody who's gone through the pain of and gone through the struggle and come on through the other side. And this film is about the struggle of women through the ages. And there's nobody better than you to understand it and portray it through music. And I want only your tabla and your voice. I don't want any other instrument. I don't want anybody else. I just want you. And giving me that freedom and that challenge, I think was a huge honor for me. And I'm so grateful that I got this opportunity. And the music and the background score was so appreciated at the Cannes Film Festival that and Hussain Sahab gave I think the biggest compliment, and he said, you have completed the images where I left them off. The film, your music has completed those sections in the film where I left it a little incomplete. Your music has completed that expression and brought across that articulation that I was envisioning. And I think that is the biggest honor, because if I, as a music composer, I'm able to satisfy my directors, to able to satisfy what is expected of me, I think I've, done my job. And it's really a blessing that I got this opportunity. And I continue to use tabla actually in different ways. Even in my albums, in my music albums, I play it in a Latin style. For example, there's a fusion album called Recharge Plus, which I did, which is a very highly selling one, in which I have played the tabla in a Latin style. And I have also played a lot of multi-percussion myself. So about 12, 13 instruments, composed the tracks, put together fusion music. So my idea has always been not to restrict myself as a classical or this or that, but actually to merge the lines and to grow the audience. Because I think we can, if we take on the world together and we use music as a tool of soft diplomacy, I think the impossible will happen.
That's very, very well said. You're also very much a part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations. You've produced a beautiful song, Dancing Rain, that portrays India's diversity, culture, and beauty. How did that come about?
I have always loved my country, been very, very inspired by the beauty, the architecture, the heritage, the culture, the music, the diversity, and learned a lot from the folk and the tribal and the classical music. And so I decided to put all this together in this song called Dancing Rain, because I wanted to, the rain has a beautiful pattern to it. There are rhythms in the rain, and in music, and in fact, there's rhythm in nature. And that rhythm is what I have put into this song. So I've started with an Afro-Cuban groove, which I have composed and played myself, right? And then I've added to it several other percussion instruments, which I've also played, about 12 percussion instruments that I've played, jamming that with 18 instruments from across the world. So there are people from the US, from India, from all parts of India that have come together in this album. There are several musicians, wonderful musicians in this album, to show the potpourri that India is, but the very, very strong cultural base and the diversity that makes it so incredible. And that's what I have celebrated in this song, and with its diverse instruments, the rhythms, and the very fusionistic style, because I wanted to cut across geographies. And by God's grace, it was very well appreciated, because when I released it on 15th August this year, it was instantly picked up by several embassies and missions across the world, and they played it on their social media pages and all that. And the ICCR and several Indian institutions also have played that. So it's a wonderful tribute. I think that that I could be a part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And of course, I am also performing for several organizations in this regard to take this movement further. And in fact, I have a composition coming up very soon, which you will know about, which is also in celebrating our country, but in a different way.
You're also very committed to the cause of gender equality. You're the brand ambassador of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign. You've done so much in terms of spreading awareness on gender equality and education in the villages. Prime Minister gave you the title of Bharat Ki Lakshmi. You composed and wrote the lyrics of the theme song of Nari Shakti campaign of the Women and Child Development Ministry. What is your approach towards women's empowerment?
I feel that, we as women must be cheerleaders for each other. We need to collaborate. When you collaborate, you have that many more hands and that little stress. But the first thing is that we must empower ourselves. And which is why I wrote that anthem, the lyrics and all that, where it starts, empowerment starts with first yourself, with you deciding that you can do it. Like when I was traveling, when I was going through all my struggles, traveling alone and facing challenges while traveling, maybe being at risk at several times, I never thought of the risk. I thought of the reward. I thought of music. And I think that professionalism, that commitment needs to be in all of us so that we can look beyond the gender problem. And for that, we need to empower each other, collaborate as women, help each other grow. And then I'm sure none of these problems will exist because uh, most of the times the devil is in our mind. And most of the times we put our own limits. But if we challenge our limits, the world is here for you to conquer.
Absolutely. And that's such a noble cause that you've associated yourself with. You also curate music for wellness workshops that help children and adults with cognitive and emotional development, development of interpersonal skills, and teamwork and stress reduction. Tell us about any one story of transformation that these workshops helped bring about.
The music has always been known to have a lot of therapeutic qualities, something that helps develop cognitive and emotive powers and improve interpersonal skills and academics. There are enough studies to prove this. And using these powers of music, I created the Music for Wellness workshops, which we presented as a 1 month long music festival for the National Bal Bhavan, and followed by a 1 week long classical music, a classical dance, and folk dance festival, which are both very appreciated because the children actually not only appreciated it, but they would come up every time, interact, and find it very educative as well as interactive as well as entertaining. And these are the kind of workshops that we intend to take now to different schools. In fact, we have already partnered with several schools, several institutions have come forward, and where I will be presenting these Music for Wellness workshops.
Towards the end, I also noticed that you've been regularly conducting online rhythm workshops for students via your academy, the Aapka Academy, during the pandemic. Tell us about your academy and also some of your future plans.
Anuradha Pal Cultural Academy is in Mumbai, where we actually present concerts. We train students to become rhythm riders, which is basically using rhythm to ride through life seamlessly, putting it in that way. Okay, and that's how we create students who love the music, who can take that forward and become better citizens. Through the entire pandemic, it's been a time of giving. It's been a time of so we've given about 10 lakhs to 350 musicians, as well as helped 270 women with blankets, with food ration, with medical supplies, and also children and all that in the villages. And so this work will also continue, and we will be also doing several music festivals coming up very soon, where different combinations of Stri Shakti, of Sufore, of my playing with different artists, as well as my Tabla Jugalbandi, we will be presenting different kind of concerts and interactive sessions.
All power to you, Anuradha ji. It was such a pleasure speaking to you on In Conversation.
Thank you so much, Moon. It's very, very kind of you, and it was a pleasure likewise.